Ladies, it's time to rise. It's time to open your eyes. It's time to stop being the woman you've been told to be and become the one you were created to be. Too many have been sleepwalking through life, distracted, drained, disconnected from destiny. You were never meant to live small, to shrink back, or to just survive. You were designed to carry purpose, to birth legacy, to stand with holy fire in your soul. But if you're not careful, you will become a version of yourself that God never authored. There is a version of womanhood today that is numbed by comfort, addicted to validation, and paralyzed by fear. You can't afford to be asleep in this season and care enough. You can't afford to be distracted while your destiny is calling. You can't afford to keep circling the same mountain of emotional chaos, broken patterns, and care enough, and self-abandonment. There's a woman you were called to be, but you've been living under a false identity. And care enough, you become this kind of woman, the kind who tolerates less, settles for crumbs, and wears strength like a mask while crumbling on the inside. Care enough, you say you're healing, but you're still entertaining the same kind of dysfunction. Care enough, you say you're moving forward, but your phone is still full of yesterday's pain. If your prayers don't change your patterns, and care enough, you're not growing, just busy. Wake up! You've built your identity around being the fixer, the savior, the one everyone depend on. But when you need someone, you feel alone. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Stop attaching your worth to how much you carry. Wake up! You wear perfection like a performance. You smile in public, cry in silence, care enough, and numb yourself with business. But God called you to pretend. He called you to be whole. Stop hiding behind the version of you that looks good on Instagram but is broken in reality. Wake up. You've given so much to roles, titles, care enough, and other people's opinions that you lost sight of your divine identity. You are not just a mother, not just a wife, not just an employee. You are a warrior, a vision carrier, a woman of fire and wisdom. Stop living like you're powerless. Wake up and take your place. Care enough. There comes a point in every woman's life when she must confront a difficult truth. You cannot heal what you will not face. Care enough. You cannot overcome what you continue to repeat, and you cannot walk into the next chapter of your life dragging the same broken patterns behind you. Share enough. Cycle recognition is not just about seeing the habits. You must have the courage to confront them. Too often we say we're growing, but really, care enough. We're just getting older. We're calling movement progress, but it's not movement. It's circling the same mountain dressed in new clothes. And care enough, quoting new affirmations, but bound by the same old wounds. We say things like, this time is different. I've changed. I'm stronger now. Yet we end up back in that same relationship, that same friendship, that same toxic environment. We keep repeating patterns and baptizing them in hopeful language. But if your actions are on repeat in your mind, is exhausted from familiar pain, you are not growing. You are stuck in a cycle. Cycles don't always look like chaos. Some cycles are wrapped in comfort. Some are disguised as stability. Care enough. You know it's a cycle when you're working hard but not changing, when you're busy but not fulfilled, when you keep pouring into places that never pour back. Care enough. You're drained, depleted, discouraged, but because it feels familiar, you stay. That's how cyclists seduce us. They make dysfunction feel normal. Care enough. They make delay look like safety. You cycles don't break themselves. They survive off of your silence, off of your fear. Care enough. Off of your unwillingness to disrupt what you've always known. But recognition is the beginning of transformation. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. And many of us are afraid to see us clearly because that means responsibility. That means accountability. No, that means doing the hard, painful internal work of shifting. Care enough. What if I told you that you're not heartbroken? You're caught in a pattern of abandonment that started years ago. Care enough. And now you chase people who trigger your childhood trauma. Care enough. What if I told your lack of boundaries isn't kindness? It's a habit of people pleasing rooted in fear of rejection. Care enough. What if I told you that you're not confused? You just haven't given yourself permission to break the cycle that makes you feel small. And care enough. It's time to wake up to your pattern. Stop explaining them. Stop excusing them. Stop spiritualizing what you're meant to surrender. You can't pray your way out of a cycle that you refuse to walk away from. You can't blame the enemy when the door is open and you keep walking back through it. Cycle recognition requires honesty and care enough. And honesty is hard when you've built an identity around your brokenisms, when you've learned to survive off of coping mechanisms. The idea of peace can feel foreign. The idea of freedom can feel terrifying. You're so used to chows that calm feels threatening. But that's not living. That's reacting. And you were not created to react. You were created to reign. You were not made to live life in circles. Care enough. The wilderness was never meant to be permanent. But if you're not intentional, you'll make a home in places that were only supposed to be temporary. You'll pitch your tent in dysfunction and convince yourself it's where you belong. But the devil is a liar. You belong in wholeness. You belong in clarity. Care enough. You belong in peace. There is a version of you that is waiting on the other side of the cycle. She is bold. She is clear. She is healthy. She does not apologize for her standard. She is not settled for almost. She is not desperate for attention. She is not a slave to her feelings. But that version of you will never emerge while you keep repeating what broke you. Recognizing the cycle means understanding the roots. Where did it start? Enough. Who taught you this pattern? Why do you think love means pain? Why do you associate loyalty with self-abandonment? Why do you think being strong means never asking for help? You can't break cycles with surface answers. You've got to dig deep. Care enough. You've got to let God go into the buried places, because what you don't heal, you'll hand down. What you don't confront, you'll repeat in new seasons. And what you don't surrender will eventually sabotage your destiny. This isn't about shame. This isn't about guilt. This is about awakening. Care enough. You've already wasted too much time dancing with dysfunction. It's time to be brave, to stop asking when it keeps happening and start changing what you allow. To stop saying, maybe one day, and start declaring what ends with me. You are the interruption to the pattern. You are the one chosen to shift the legacy. And no, it won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because the moment you recognize the cycle is the moment the cycle starts to lose power. Awareness is a weapon. When you finally see the enemy for what it is, you stop entertaining it. You stop entertaining the one who doesn't call. Care enough. You stop texting the one who ghosted you. You stop saying yes when your soul is screaming no. Stop letting your past speak louder than your purpose. Beloved, this is the season to live awake, to take off the blindfold of fear, to silence the voice that says you can't change, to confront the part of you that has mistaken chaos for love. It's time to stop circling, stop spiraling, stop tolerating the thing that keeps stealing your joy. There's a quiet ache that lives in many women. A yearn to be chosen, seen, valued, enough, wanted. And somewhere along the way, we started mistaking being needed for being loved. We started confusing our usefulness with our worth, care enough, our availability with our value, and our loyalty with our identity. But let me tell you, this being needed is not the same as being loved. One feeds on your exhaustion. The other pours into your soul. If you're not careful, care enough, you'll build your life around people who don't love you for who you are, but for what you can do. You'll become the fixer, the strong one, care enough, the one who's always there, always giving, always showing up until there's nothing left of you. And they'll keep taking and care enough, because as long as you're giving, they'll keep calling it love. But deep down, you know, you're not loved. You're used. And care enough. Some women have never truly been loved. They've only been needed. Needed for their strength, needed for their stability, needed to be the emotional backbone of a man, a family, a community. They've played the role of therapist, provider, mother, sister, rescuer, care enough, and protector. But rarely have they been pursued just for their heart. And because it felt good to be needed, they stayed. They stayed even when it hurt. Care enough. They stayed even when they were tired. They stayed because being needed gave them a sense of control, of importance, of value. If someone only values you when you are serving them, they do not love you. They are using you. Love is not dependency. Love is not draining. Care enough. Love doesn't require your exhaustion to be validated. Real love doesn't just take, it honors. It sees. It holds space for you to just be. Care enough. Without performance, without roles, without function. You were not created to be someone's lifeline. And care enough. You were not designed to carry someone else's healing on your back. Yes, you're strong. Yes, you're gifted. Yes, you're capable. But strength without boundaries is bondage. And what you call love may actually be an emotional transaction where your brokenness and there's keep trading places. Care enough. They need you because they haven't healed. You stay because you haven't either. Many women stay in toxic situations because they're afraid that if they stop being needed, they'll become invisible enough. They believe their presence is only valuable when they're saving someone. And when the person doesn't need them anymore, they feel lost, forgotten, empty, because they've tied their identity to being necessary, not to being cherished. You are not a rehab center for broken men. You are not a shelter for wounded friendships. You are not a dumping ground for everyone else's pain while no one checks on yours. You are not strong so people can abuse your strength. You are strong because you carry divine weight. But strength should never cost you your softness. Your power is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate. It is proven by how much peace you protect and care enough. But you will never find that kind of love if you keep answering the phone every time trauma calls and care enough. You'll never taste that kind of love if you keep settling for people who only know how to take and care enough. You'll never receive the love you were created for if you're still addicted to being needed. And that's what it is, an addiction. Because need makes you feel powerful. You feel important. You feel seen. But the problem with being needed is that once you're no longer useful and care enough, you're discarded. You weren't loved. You were a tool. You weren't seen. You were convenient. And when you stop performing, the connection dies. That's not love. That's survival disguised as romantio or friendship. Some of you were taught that love is sacrifice without reciprocity. You watch the women, before you give everything they had, lose themselves and call it faithfulness. You learn that to be good means to give until it hurts. Care enough. And that's why you tolerate things you shouldn't. That's why you feel guilty for wanting more. And care enough. That's why you silence your own needs. Because you've been programmed to believe that loving others well means abandoning yourself. And care enough. Until you start loving yourself, you will keep confusing being needed with being loved. And until you start seeing your worth beyond your output, care enough, you will continue to attract people who only value what you do, not who you are. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. So if you keep entertaining need, don't be surprised when love never shows up. You've got to start saying, I'm not available for relationships that only value my presence when I'm fixing things. You've mastered the art of seeming okay, caring enough. And because you've made looking strong your identity, you forgot that you were never meant to survive off performance. Care enough. You were meant to thrive in truth. You were never meant to live as a version of yourself that keeps you hidden behind expectations. You were made to be whole, not just impressive. Somewhere along the line, you were taught that your authenticity was a liability, that if people really knew what you were feeling and care enough, what you were battling, they were carrying, they would walk away. So you learned to perform, not just but for other yourself. You perform strength. You perform confidence, you perform healing, but when you go home and take off the costume, the real you is crying for help. Performance is a form of protection. It's how we cope when we don't feel safe. It's how we survive when authenticity has cost us too much in the past. We've told ourselves, care enough. If I show too much emotion, they'll think I'm unstable. If I ask for help, they'll think I'm not capable. If I rest, they'll think I'm lazy. If I speak up, they'll label me difficult. And so we shrink. Or worse, we shape shift. We become what they need, what they praise, what they expect. But God didn't call you to be who they expect. You were called to be who He created. Care enough. You weren't created to live behind a mask. You weren't designed to pretend. The world may reward your image, but heaven responds to your truth. There's a version of you that God bless, but He cannot bless the mask. He blesses the real you. The brawl you. The you who cries out in the middle of the night. The you who quotes scripture to hide pain. The you who admits, I'm not okay. Not the you who keeps saying, I'm fine when your heart is on fire. So many women are drowning silently because they feel they can't let the world see their wounds. They lead people to freedom while still bound themselves. And care enough. They give powerful advice they don't live. They champion others while secretly struggling with anxiety, insecurity, loneliness, and depression. And care enough. The enemy wants to keep you in performance mode because he knows performance leads to burnout. But authenticity leads to breakthrough. And breakthrough doesn't come through pretending. It comes through surrender. And the longer you perform, the more distant you become from your true self. Care enough. Eventually, you won't even recognize who you really are. You'll know how to answer everyone else's problems, but be completely lost with your own. Care enough. You'll know how to carry everyone else, but not how to carry your own truth. You were not called to impress. You were called to impact, and real impact comes from real people, not perfect ones. Care enough. The woman who is honest about her scars will always carry more authority than the one who pretends she's never been hurt. And care enough. The woman who stops performing, starts living in truth, will finally experience the peace she's been pretending to have. And care enough. There is a kind of delay that looks spiritual, sounds responsible, and feels safe. But in reality, it's disobedience wearing a disguise. We dress it up as waiting on confirmation. Say, I'm praying on it. We convince ourselves we're being cautious, being wise, being careful. Care enough, but deep down, we're just afraid. And in saying yes to God, we're saying maybe. Instead of moving, we're managing. Instead of trusting, care enough, we're calculating. When God says go, hesitation is not faith, it's fear. When you know what you're called to do and care enough, but you keep putting it off for the sake of convenience, comfort, or clarity, you're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you. He's waiting on your yes, caring on your movement. He's waiting for you to stop circling the same thought patterns, the same fears, the same excuses, and take action. We often think obedience means alignment in heart or belief, but true obedience is more than agreement. It's movement. It's not just hearing, it's doing. You can have all the dreams, prophecies, journal entries, and vision boards in the world, but until you act on what God has told you, you're still disobedient. Obedience doesn't live in potential, it lives in action. Some of us are sitting on ideas, books, ministries, businesses, boundaries, decisions, waiting for the perfect moment. But purpose rarely shows up in perfection. Purpose is birthed in movement and care enough. And while you're waiting for certainty, the assignment is sitting dormant. You don't need another sign. You don't need another word. Care enough. You don't need another prophecy to do what you already know you've been called to do. At some point, you have to stop gathering information and start walking in instruction. Because delayed obedience doesn't just slow down your purpose, it suffocates your peace. You can't be at rest while living in resistance. So we stall with stallitual language, we stall with busy schedules, we stall with procrastination that feels like wisdom. But no matter how long you delay, care enough, the instruction doesn't change. God doesn't edit his will to accommodate your fears. You don't have to understand everything to obey. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to be willing. Willing to look foolish, willing to be uncomfortable. Willing to trust him more than your logic. Care enough, because obedience is not about comfort. It's about surrender. And surrender rarely feels safe, but it is always sacred. You may say, enough. But what if I mess up? Let me tell you, this God can work with a woman in motion. He can redirect what's misaligned. He can guide what's yielded. Care enough. But he cannot steer what's stagnant. As long as you're frozen in indecision, he cannot move through. But if you'll take that step, if you'll risk obedience, he'll meet you with grace every single time. Some of us want peace, care enough, but we won't obey the voice of peace. We want clarity, but we ignore the whisper that's already speaking. We pray for doors to open and care enough, but we won't leave the room we're in. But we're crying out for a miracle, but won't make the move that activates it. Care enough. Obedience is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who gave the command. It's about knowing that if God said it, care enough, he's already made provision for it. That means your yes is already covered. That means your act of faith is already wrapped in his faithfulness. Carol, you don't need to feel strong to say yes. You need to feel convicted. Conviction is stronger than fear. Conviction will push you to break cycles. And conviction will have you leaving places that are familiar but not fruitful. Conviction will make you walk away from almost relationships. Uncare enough, from opportunities that look but aren't God, from friendships that no longer serve your purpose. Obedience costs. Let's not romanticize it. Care enough. It will cost your comfort, your ego, your need to control. It will cost applause. It will cost timing. It will cost what you thought life would look like. Care enough. But what you gain in return, peace, power, purpose, clarity, freedom, and favor, is always worth the price. The woman you are becoming cannot afford delayed obedience. She needs your now. She needs your decision. She needs you to stop negotiating with what God already told you to walk away from. She needs you to stop talking about it and start being about it. Care enough. Because every time you delay, you dishonor the divine assignment on your life. And let's be clear, obedience is not just about big moves. Care enough. Sometimes it's small decisions that open the biggest doors. Waking up early to pray, saying no to what drains you, speaking when you'd rather be silent, letting go of what no longer fits, setting a boundary, resting, saying yes to the unknown. Obedience doesn't always feel radical enough, but it always carries weight. It carries heaven's favor, carries divine momentum. And once you say yes, things begin to shift inside of you and around you, because obedience breaks chains. It realigns vision. It unlocks heaven. She looks in the mirror and sees a face that wears many hats. Wife, mother, leader, care enough, friend, achiever, but she struggles to see herself. She knows how to show up for everyone else, but has lost touch with the woman inside who used to dream, feel, and believe. And that loss of identity is not just emotional, it's spiritual. You forget that you were never meant to beg for love. You forget that peace is your birthright. You forget that you were created in the image of a God who does not make mistakes. You forget that your voice matters, and care enough that your heart matters, that your presence carries weight. And over time, without even realizing it, you start becoming a woman you were never meant to be. You become the pleasing, the overachiever, the woman who never rests, who never feels, who never slows down long enough to listen to her soul. You become the one who only feels valuable when she's needed, the one who hides behind strength, the one who carries everyone else's burdens while ignoring her own. You become a woman who performs rather than lives, who reacts rather than chooses. Care enough, who settles rather than soars. That's who life tried to make you. That's who trauma forced you to be. That's who rejection shaped you into. That's who silence convinced you to remain. It was spoken over you before you were born. It was written in eternity before your first breath. It was sealed by heaven before you ever faced heartbreak, failure, or betrayal, even when the mirror reflects someone tired, even when the relationship failed. Care enough, even when you walked away from purpose, even when you lost years in the wilderness of confusion, compromise, and comfort. Process of restoration is not easy, because to restore something, you must first strip it. You must remove what doesn't belong. And for many women, care enough, that means peeling off the layers of false identity that culture and broken systems have placed on them. You have to peel off the shame. Care enough. Peel off the people-pleasing. Peel off the pride that says you're fine when you're really drowning. Peel off the belief that you're too far gone. And peel off the lie that says, this is just who I am now. That's not who you are. That's who you became in pain. And it's time to come home to yourself. No, you must be willing to let God tear down the false selves you built to cope with abandonment, trauma, and pressure. And care enough, you must be willing to grieve the woman you've been pretending to be. You must be willing to lose what was never you in order to find what's always been inside you. You were made to be bold, soft, holier, and deeply grounded. And care enough, you were made to be a woman who walks in truth without apology. A woman who doesn't chase, doesn't shrink, doesn't beg, doesn't perform. A woman who shows up in every room knowing she belongs. Not because of her resume, but because of her identity. Who did I become while trying to survive? Care enough. What did I lose while trying to be like? Where did I shrink when I was called to expand? Whose voice did I listen to that drowned out my own? There is a weight you carry that's invisible to the world but undeniable in your spirit. A sense that time is passing, Something inside you must be birthed, that you are meant for more than just existing, surviving, and waiting. It's not anxiety. It's not pressure. It's not ambition. It's the urgency of purpose. You were not born to blend in. You were not born to stay stuck in fear, comfort, or complacency. You were born to shift things, to build something that outlives you, to speak words that heal, to walk in a calling that changes atmospheres. You were created with divine intention on purpose for purpose. Purpose doesn't pause for your fears. It doesn't stall for your preferences. It doesn't accommodate your procrastination. There are things inside you that generations are waiting on. There are assignments with your name on them. Souls connected to your voice, movements linked to your obedience. But as long as you keep hitting the snooze button on your purpose, you delay the deliverance someone else is praying for. When you don't rise, someone stays bound. When you don't speak, someone stays silent. When you don't move, someone remains stuck. When you delay, someone's breakthrough gets postponed. That's why the enemy wants to keep you distracted, delayed, and doubting. He doesn't just want to ruin your life. He wants to rob the people attached to your assignment. Because your purpose is not just personal, it's generational. And the longer you sleep on it, the longer your legacy remains buried. It's something you wake up and step into, even if your knees are shaking, even if your voice is trembling, even if no one claps when you start, even if you feel unqualified, overlooked, misunderstood, or alone. God does not call the perfect. He calls the willing. He equips those who say yes, not those who say maybe when I feel more confident. If you're waiting for confidence before you walk in purpose, you'll still be in the same place year watching other people rise while your gift gathers dust. You don't need another door. You need more discipline. You don't need another opportunity. You need more obedience. You don't need more motivation. You need more movement. What could have taken 6 months turns into 6 years of talking, planning, journaling, and procrastinating. The call has already been given. The path won't always be clear, but the instruction has already been planted in your spirit. And the more you delay, the more you risk waking up one day and realizing you lived a life that was safe, but never significant. Purpose is not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like saying no to distractions. Sometimes it looks like sitting in solitude instead of scrolling. Sometimes it means letting go of people who love your comfort but can't handle your calling. If you're serious about becoming the woman God designed you to be, you must make peace with the cost. The cost of staying stuck is far more painful than the cost of rising, not urgency driven by pressure, but urgency driven by alignment. You know the season is shifting. You can feel it in your bones. You sense that what once fit now feels too small. You've outgrown the conversations, the spaces, the excuses. God has been whispering, and now He's pushing. This is not the time to apologize for being serious about your assignment. This is not the time to stay stuck in what's familiar. This is your season to stop waiting for permission and start walking in power. To stop praying for doors and start building your own table. To stop shrinking to fit comfort zones that were never meant to hold your calling. You've been quiet long enough. You've second-guessed yourself long enough. You've played small long enough. Because if you don't rise, you will continue to attract people and situations that match your delay. But the moment you move, the moment you align, things will start shifting. The people, provision, the opportunities, the doors, they're already prepared. They're just waiting on you. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too old. You are not too inexperienced. You are not too anything. You don't need all the answers. You just need to say yes. Yes to the prompting. Yes to the push. Yes to the platform. Yes to the process. Yes to the pressure, because pressure is proof of purpose. You have been chosen for such a time as this, not to impress, but to impact, not to perform, but to transform, not to blend in, but to build, and build you will. Only if you rise, only if you move, only if you stop giving your purpose leftovers. This is not the season for potential. This is not the season for someday. This is the season for urgency. Move with fire, move with strategy, move like the kingdom is depending on it, because it is. Move like souls are connected to your obedience, because they are. You were not created to live a life of delay. You were created to walk in divine acceleration. Acceleration can't find you if you won't move. You are the woman for the job. You are the answer to someone's cry. You are the solution wrapped in skin. You are the living, breathing evidence of purpose in motion. So stop sleeping on yourself. Stop delaying your destiny. Stop treating your purpose like it's optional. The time is now. The urgency is real, and the world is waiting.